Yep.
Or LeBlanc.
Yeah, and actually, there's Kha'Zix as well. So I would, if I'm Immortals here, just thinking about the cohesion of the team compositions, you might not ban any of those three. You leave up potentially Varus, LeBlanc, and Kha'Zix, and maybe take 2 for 1. Like, this could actually be a 2 for 1 trade if we're considering that many OPs, but they end up banning LeBlanc, which will give over Varus, and give Immortals Kha'Zix, probably.
So Varus for Kha'Zix, likely going to be the trade here. Do not want to opt for that 2 for 1 potential. Misfortune actually locked in immediately on the side of Immortals. And we got to remember that it could also potentially be AD carry Misfortune.
Well, especially because the Varus, or sorry, the Ashe and the Jhin are banned. So I'm actually expecting it to be AD Misfortune. That's a pretty good trade for Immortals, as long as they're still able to pick Initiation on their team to double up with the Kha'Zix, because the big problem that happened last game is there's a Varus on the other team and no way of getting to him. But Immortals can still build ways to get to him, so I think that is still beneficial to Immortals for these 2 picks.
Yep, just got to make sure that they don't fall into the same pitfall that their opponents did last time, going with a non-tank jungler, a non-tank top laner, a non-tank support, and all of a sudden you're out of options. As Dignitas going to go ahead and pick up the Zyra there in the bottom lane to go along with that Varus. Have to see what they decide to do as their final pick here in round number 1. They still have not selected their jungler. Their opponents have. We might see them go for something like that to avoid getting pinched further, but instead they're going to be picking up that big tank in the Maokai.
All right, we got some initiation there with the Maokai, making sure that Flame doesn't get it again. So we're seeing Ssumday on Maokai. They actually have won some games with him on that champion. The Zyra is a little bit of a forced pick, I feel like, for them, because they don't want to give Immortals the MF Zyra AD support lane. But now there's still a chance that we'll see Immortals switch that up a bit, but who knows?
Immortals going to go ahead and look for that Malzahar right now, indicating that it is AD Misfortune 100%. Malzahar is going to be supporting that one. The lockdown potential from those ults, a good tool for making picks happen and making plays happen.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's most likely the MF and the Malzahar, but even just today, we saw the Malzahar move mid lane. So there's still a lot of flexing that Immortals can do, and Hermes likes to be clever in these draft phases. So be on the lookout, especially if mid lane gets banned or something, that they could still switch up their support choice and throw Malzahar mid.
Focus on the jungle from Immortals in ban phase number 2, deciding to take both the Graves and the Lee Sin off the table, kind of trying to limit what Chaser can do there in that role. As the Shen is the ban from Team Dignitas, still waiting on number 2, trying to keep Flame down in the top lane.
Absolutely they are, but if it also depends on Immortals wants to put him on more of a carry style, because Jace, the Kennen could technically still be up top lane for Flame if you wanted to do the attack speed with Zen Kennen we've seen a little bit of. Poppy would still be something you could go with, or Nautilus if they wanted pretty basic tank. So while Team Dignitas did accomplish something with those bans, I feel like Flame will still be okay.
Yeah, 10 bans is a lot more than we're used to, but there's still not enough to take a whole bunch of stuff off the table. Nautilus is locked in.
Absolutely so. Plenty of initiation for Immortals. And still a ton of flexibility with that final pick. They still have the ability to pick a support or a mid laner with that final choice.
Lod picking up that Corki for himself. Well, not for himself, for Keane, for his mid laner. And we've seen the strength of that champion as well. Corki combined with Varus, not only do both these champions have a lot of poke potential, but you've got physical damage poke from Varus, you've got magical damage poke from Corki. It's a dual threat.
Yep, it's an incredibly common combo. I was thinking they're actually going to go with the Ivern, because Ivern is really good in poke compositions as far as shielding and extra disengage, but instead they just go with the Rek'Sai to kind of make a more standard team fighting composition. And maybe it just has to do with practice, since Ivern's still pretty new on the scene.
Ivern is a very different champion compared to most others as well. Definitely not one of those guys that you're just like, oh yeah, it'll be just like Rek'Sai, or it'll be just like Graves, or just like Kha'Zix. Very different style. As Immortals decides to go ahead and lock in Ryze for Pobelter. It will be AD carry Misfortune with the support Malzahar now that we've seen that mid laner locked in for sure.
So essentially what we expected on the first 3 picks, no big curveballs in the second part of the draft phase. And this game should be more exciting. We should
It would be hard for it not to be.
Only because this time both teams do have better initiation tools we have the Varus ultimate and the Maokai on one side, and then we still have the Malzahar, Ryze, Kha'Zix, and Nautilus on the Immortals side. So Immortals still with more tools to initiate, but Team Dignitas has something to fight back with this time.
And Dignitas have got to be happy about the tools that they've got to make things happen. You've got a Rek'Sai, right? You've got yourself with a Zyra that can lock people down. You've got a Maokai that can initiate. All those problems from last time are alleviated, and Dignitas should find some trigger pull opportunities this time around to hopefully participate a little bit more actively in mid to late game League of Legends.
Exactly, and we think about the early game that happened from the last matchup as well. It was a good start for Team Dignitas. Keane and Ssumday were both off to strong leads. They just were unable to convert any of that. So I want to see if they can get that type of start again and then maybe force a third game in this series.
Hopefully, we could see that. If you're a fan of Dignitas, that is. But if you're a fan of Immortals, you're hoping to see them get another one, hopefully a little bit more exciting than the last one, but around the same vein and lock it away 2-0. Dardoch on that Kha'Zix, talking about this guy being a top-tier player, being a kind of guy that they're comfortable giving him a lower-tier pick sometimes, but this game, he is on anything but a low-tier pick. Dardoch on Ka is a scary proposition.
Yep, and they had heavy bans towards him. It didn't look like Chaser had anything special planned to kind of invalidate those bans, so this time, Dardoch will definitely be looking to carry. I'm expecting him to go very aggressive items on this Kha'Zix.
On to Summoner's Rift for game number 2 between Dignitas and Immortals. Everybody walking out of the base, fanning out into that 5-point line. Make sure nothing really happens too aggressively early on. Keystone Masteries on the bottom part of your screen. Courage of the Colossus again for the Maokai, but it's going to be Grasp for Nautilus.
Yeah, and that's mainly just to try and stand toe-to-toe with Maokai in the lane. Nautilus has been a little bit disadvantaged later in the game here, and this will only enhance his early laning phase, so he can hopefully max E, shove him in, and then also win the auto attack trade.
Warlord's Bloodlust on the Varus as well. Just wanted to go ahead and point that out, since sometimes you can still see these poke champions go for a Deathfire touch. It's rare, but you will see the Warlords more often. You're going to be seeing that today from Lod. His Varus is going to have a hard time doing as much damage as Cody Sun's Varus did last game. That is for sure.
Yeah, although if we look at the total damage done by Varus, I'm sure there's plenty of people that did 33,000, but that 65%,
right, that's the number that's going to be
for sure.
Very difficult to find, as the fan votes showing up in favor of Immortals. 61% of people think that they're walking away with this game, while 39% still have faith in Dignitas after that shaky game number 1.
Yeah, and early on, we're actually seeing Immortals bot side give Dardoch a pull in both games. They did this with Malzahar for Dardoch in game 1. And that's actually relatively rare in pro play. We're seeing mostly top laners pull for their jungle. And this will now just kind of make the game a little bit harder to predict for Chaser. Normally the dual lanes don't do it because they care much more about the level 2 spike than the top laners do when they're mainly in tank matchups. So Cody Sun and Olleh have to make sure not to get pushed in and killed on level 2. But now I want to see how Dardoch varies his start, since he got essentially a better pull than Chaser.
Not to mention, he got what is one of the best leashes in the game, thanks to the level 1 Malzahar, thanks to the crab spam. They clear the buff very effectively, they tank the shots from it. It's just the best you could ask for.
It really is. He's able to go smiteless on his first kill and really just power him up for the jungle. You see he's already level 3, meanwhile you check Chaser. Still got a full buff to clear, so Dardoch full camp ahead.
Dardoch is definitely the kind of player who can make use out of an advantage like this. We'll have to see who he goes on the prowl for, what he tries to do with this slight advantage that he's built up for himself. Gonna be crossing the river, just going to grab that Scuttle Crab for now. As Chaser decides he's gonna grab the one on the other end of the map. Wards from Dignitas will spot out Dardoch taking this Scuttle Crab, so at least they've got eyes on what he's doing.
Yeah, good wards there, and it really kind of forfeited Dardoch's advantage. He spent so much time in transit to get over to that Scuttle Crab, and now he's just clearing out. The Raptor's good recall interrupt by Keane, knowing Pobelter ran through his entire mana pool.
Keane can't really fight back any further now either, as Chaser still hanging around the middle area of the map. Tried to go into Dardoch's bottom side jungle, see if there were any camps there to take away, anything that he could possibly just build that advantage kind of back up after his slightly disadvantageous start compared to what Dardoch got, but Dardoch going for the full clear means that's not going to be successful. Now Dardoch uses the Blast Cone to get himself over the wall, and he might be the one finding the camps of his opponent, realizes the Gromp is there, and decides to take it.
Yeah, kills the Blast Cone early, but then also sees the Gromp up. So, really quality early clear on Kha'Zix. About the best you could hope for. level 4.5, 4 minutes in, so good start.
Good start, slow start. Dignitas to a 300 gold advantage though, just this early on into the game, 4 minutes in to have a gold advantage on your team like that, and a lot of it's being seen in this bottom lane. Nice twisted advance to dodge the dredge line. Maokai mechanic.
Yeah, super cool. I mean, being able to maximize in these tank versus tank matchups can have a larger influence than you would expect. A lot of people think you can just kind of pick up a tank and go in it, and in a sense you can split lane or lose lane soft, but for getting those mechanics down, you need to be able to survive. Noting the Flame did go with Grasp early, so he's expecting to early push in Ssumday a little bit. It's pretty important to be able to do stuff like that.
Scryer's Bloom fired off into the enemy jungle by Chaser, just making sure Dardoch's not going to be hanging around as he decides to steal away the Gromp from that enemy jungler. Dignitas' bottom lane continuing to put the pressure on Immortals, always having them shoved back, always having them shoved up, and Zyra and Varus can be very oppressive and difficult to deal with.
They really can. It's just an absurd amount of poke. At this point, even though the MF can kill the Malzahar Voidlings relatively quickly, or sorry, the MF can kill the Zyra plants relatively quickly, it's still tough because now instead of being a support who's free to do that, it's forfeiting CS if you're going for those things. Oh, here we go, Dardoch
getting himself destroyed by Dardoch. That was merciless.
Woo. And right before that happened, I was going to say I was really enjoying watching Chaser and Dardoch kind of mind game each other in the jungle, both going in for the Gromp steals. But then Chaser gets really greedy and goes for the Wolves as well, and that's when Dardoch catches in, having already shopped for the double longsword right here. So if he was paying very close attention, he would have seen Dardoch with the last bit of that tremor sense, but there's no extra indications there. This time, Dardoch reveals. Chaser doesn't unburrow as Dardoch jumps on to kind of get the knock-up and maybe have a better chance of escaping. Dardoch just gets his full combo onto him to pick up first blood.
Very unfortunate for Chaser, who has decided to go with the Tiamat Rek'Sai style. Sometimes you see Rek'Sai forego that, just go straight into tankiness. Not on Chaser. He's going to be making sure he has that extra clear potential, a little bit of extra damage too, as Dardoch works towards that Skirmisher Saber with Warrior, meaning the next time he finds Chaser, it's going to be even scarier than last.
Exactly. Huge dueling potential with the Challenging Smite. And I'm going to see if Immortals can pull anything off here, because even though they got that first blood, they're still actually very even in gold. And where's the big differential actually coming from? It's the bottom lane who's losing by 20 CS.
Big CS deficit down there. Law doing a good job on that Varus, keeping Cody and Olleh stuck underneath their turret, just sort of walking back and forth there. The arrow dissipating before he was able to fire it off where he wanted it. Cody's son just trying to farm up as much as he can here. Olleh kind of caught down in the river, can't safely walk himself back into lane, so he's going to have to go back around and come back in the hard way. You can see Dardoch now passing that second blue buff off to Pobelter. Ryze, one of the traditionally most successful champions with blue buff, just gets so much use out of that. Going to be happy to pick that one up for himself. As Laud and Xpecial maybe thought about moving up to try to stop this, but it's already too late.
Yeah, I'm also interested in seeing Pobelter go with the early Lucidity boots on the Ryze. Oftentimes you'll see like boots 1 and then a Catalyst, or maybe no boots and still 2 mana items. But based on how much he's been using his summoners to survive in these games, or maybe just wanting the extra move speed to dodge some of Corki's skill shots, he's gone for those silly boots early. Hopefully he's probably using that as a way of staying alive a little bit better, as that's been an issue for him lately.
One thing I'm going to be watching as this game goes further on is Keane's use of the package on the Corki. A lot of times in these games where Corki's the mid laner, you see the early game packages not meet with a lot of success. They just end up getting burnt to kill a minion wave, to walk back and forth to a camp, maybe to grab the Raptor camp for free or something like that. But very rarely do we actually see these early game packages result in some big kind of a move.
Yeah, the main use that I'd like to see from it is if Keane, oftentimes you'll see Corki's walk into the enemy jungle, go for a jungle kill, and then package out if things go awry. You would want to do that against a less aggressive jungler than the Kha'Zix, who if he does find him, is going to take half your health basically instantly from Fog of War. So I agree with you. I don't think we'll see anything huge from Keane this game.
Sheen up and running on him means that if he does find somebody, that burst is going to be very, very strong. The tier running on the Varus, along with the Ryze, means those stacks are going to be incoming, as Misfortune is working just straight towards that lethality build, the same way that Jhin builds it, the same way that Varus builds it, the Yumu's Ghostblade, and the Edge of Night.
Yeah, the difference after that, though, is the fact that Misfortune can go right into Black Cleaver and full stack that with the ultimate is pretty insane that even just getting to those items will be enough in teamfights. So it's been a big rise in AD Misfortune with the lethality buff, just because you can get that extra Black Cleaver and still have such a good synergy.
Speaking of Ryze, Pobelter eating some damage from Keane and all those rockets here in the mid lane. Keane does have that big golden glow on him, which means he's got the package ready for delivery. But with only 1/4 of the timer left on it, I think our prediction is going to end up correct, where he doesn't actually have a good spot to deliver it to. But there's ping coming out from Dignitas onto this bottom lane, seeing if they can maybe do something. Olleh and Cody's son getting back instantly. That's going to cancel Olleh's ultimate. The package arrives right as he starts to channel and knocks him out of it.
Yeah, that was a really weird interaction right there. Olleh, with the Malzahar ultimate, it doesn't stop Keane from going all the way through, and the package has a natural knockaway on it. So he was unable to sustain the interrupt onto it, but it doesn't matter. They're still able to escape, although it's going to mean probably first turret for Team Dignitas.
Keane back in mid lane, scaring Pobelter off a little bit. Going to be trading with him, loses the trade, but Dignitas grabs turret first blood. They grab themselves a gold advantage, and they're looking better than they did in game number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly enough, it's the mid lane and the top lane that are slightly in the favor of Immortals right here.
Dardoch hanging around, seeing if he can find anybody. Problem is, it's going to be 2 at once. He's got to be running away from this one. Fragment Throne's going to be used. Exhaust down. Dardoch in trouble, having to jump away. Pobelter there to cover his escape, but Dardoch, he was setting the trap, man. He didn't know that he was the one walking right into something bad.
Yeah, good on Team Dignitas to roam Xpecial and Chaser together. Make sure Dardoch can't get any isolation bonus, and it doesn't look like Immortals have any natural answer to that roam bottom from Team Dignitas, and they're just gonna kind of be stuck playing defense for a little bit here.
Dardoch going back to farming. Does that very quickly as Kha'Zix. He's got the evolved claws now, so those isolated targets are gonna be ripped to shreds that much more quickly. Now, this game, we have been seeing a lot recently of the Kha'Zix, the change in evolution patterns. Used to, it was always the Q into the E, so you could have the wings for the resets. These days, we're seeing a lot more of the W evolution second to get the rocket poke, get the extra slows, and just sort of become more of a nuisance with those tools.
Yeah, and there's always a question of what you're going to do. I've seen much more Ws, and less Acadian is a player who's really stuck with the max E because he's usually really fed and he's looking to hard carry in team fights, but in these situations with Immortals having so much follow-up CC, I think Dardoch would go the W as well, but who knows?
I love every single time we pan to see Pobelter and Keane, they're always just finding each other for this split-second trade where they both lose about 1/4 of their HP and then go back to not caring about it. Keane going to be bound up though, Rune Prison finding him. Xpecial and Chaser looking to invade once more. Olleh soaking damage from that piercing arrow. Chaser's going to be the one ulted. Dardoch looking to jump in. Flames here with the TP. Pobelter's got the cutoff. Lod's going to be double ulted. See you later. Chaser now trying to collapse onto Pobelter, but he and Keane have got to be careful on this one. Rockets are flying. Body counts rising. Chaser's out of here, and Dardoch is grabbing the kill.
And Ssumday not even in the fight with that teleport, so that's Immortals' answer to the earlier play. They're going to at least be able to get this bottom tier turret.
They might not have got turret first blood, but they will respond in style. Immortals should grab this one for themselves. No difficulty whatsoever. Drake is also up. We'll have to see if they decide to rotate over towards that, but Dignitas is respawning, and here's how the catch happened.
Yeah, pretty much just see Team Dignitas pushed up a little bit, and they can be first to the roam with the Ryze and first to the TP with the Nautilus, and they don't even execute this perfectly. They probably had Law dead without the Nautilus ultimate, and they missed the initial dredge line, but Chaser already without flash, able to get finished off there by Dardoch, and then 2 kills, turret, Drake as well. Bunch of advantages swinging over to Immortals just by pulling the trigger. Didn't even need to execute it properly because they had such a positional advantage.
Now they've got to defend their mid lane tier 1. Cody's son is here, but he's almost completely out of mana. His ultimate also still not off cooldown from the last use. Gonna need some help coming soon from the rest of the team. He's got both the Malzahar and the Kha'Zix working their way over here. Chaser also gonna be hanging around just to make sure that Laud and Xpecial do not find themselves in a spot that's too dangerous.
Yeah.
And with Keane now joining them, also almost with his Trinity Force completed, Dignitas has the damage and the pressure they need to get that tier 1.
pretty good reaction there by Team Dignitas after seeing the Cloud Drake go down, because Immortals, after winning the team fight, took 2 objectives in the turret and the Drake, and that takes a substantial amount of time. So Team Dignitas had respawned by then, all group up, know that Immortals is going to be wanting to recall, accrue the numbers in the mid lane, and get theirs.
Now Ssumday is going to make sure that that top lane turret doesn't take any more damage than it needs to. Dignitas would like to hold on to this 2-1 turret lead if they can. Keep the gold nice and close. Immortals with an only 300 lead at this point. Rift Herald not being taken like we saw him last game. Have to see if Immortals decides they want to put any kind of pressure onto that again. Warrior Enchantment with the Skirmisher Saber completed for Dardoch. Very scary on that. Cinderhulk still being worked on by Chaser there for the jungle items. Spirit Visage, item number 1 for Flame. Looking to resist all that magic damage coming in from Keane and Xpecial and even Ssumday.
Yeah, Flame can completely ignore Ssumday at this point in the game. Also, generally speaking, he's going to be able to ignore Laud for quite some time because he actually is just a very healthy person with a small amount of armor thanks to that cloth armor. So, expect some impressive tankiness from Flame. Good job winning the early lane with Grasp there. And another pretty close game. So much of this will be about who can actually go and make the play.
Yeah, last game started off very close as well, as Immortals, almost on cue, they're deciding they're going to go for this again. I like seeing this because there's so many times you see teams pretty much completely ignore this guy every single game. Rift Herald gets very little attention compared to other objectives, so Immortals deciding to prioritize this a little bit, and when you put it on somebody like Dardoch, it's like putting a built-in rapid-fire cannon or static shiv proc onto your champion. Just makes the burst that much more scary.
Yeah. In solo situations.
In solo situations.
When it's around allies, it's not going to be effective, so I think last game, while they did get it, I don't think he once actually utilized it, aside from just getting the experience and the gold that the Rift Herald itself grants. But when nothing else is happening, like, this is, in my opinion, a little bit of a symptom of Team Dignitas not applying that much map pressure. The fact that Immortals is able to take it without being punished is why not? It's just you don't see it often because it's a pretty high investment thing to take for questionable rewards.
And honestly, I think last game, the game was 4-4 when they took it. So 1 kill happened in the 20-minute span that Rift Herald was active. So not really a good opportunity to put it to the test there.
Yeah, and also, Team Dignitas was unable to get a kill for the last 24 minutes of that game. I believe they didn't get a kill down the stretch. I want confirmation on that. But if that's true, you had that to the 16 minutes of this game, and it's been a better part of an hour that they haven't gotten a kill yet.
40 minutes since Dignitas has managed to get some blood from Immortals. They're going to be looking for it as soon as they can, but for the time being, the plan is just to farm it up and ride it out, as Olleh and Dardoch going to be looking to help Flame take down this tier 1. That's Immortals tying the turret count up, bringing themselves back up to over a 1,000 gold lead, and Cody's son is again strutting around mid lane, trying to hold off this push from Laud and Xpecial.
Yeah, really trying to get that rotational advantage, but not able to get much damage down, right? Cody's son just sitting on his ultimate, will still have it if he needs to throw it in, and the teleport's back up from Flame, so when they're pushing forward, they got to be a little bit careful that they don't get flanked.
Cody's son is starting to take some real pain from those piercing arrows as well. Ghostblade done now on both of these AD carries. Means lots of lethality, lots of damage.
Ssumday's going in for the fight, though.
The TP. This might be big. Looking to cut off Immortals as they go to exit stage left, and all our excitement of a fight just disappears.
Yep, they weren't quite able to get
False
in there,
alarm.
pull the trigger. False alarm. Team Dignitas still not quite on the board from a kills perspective. Mountain Drake's up in a minute 30, though. That usually means a fight. A missed teleport.
This is Dignitas, though. This is Dignitas. Last game. We just got done saying it's been 40 minutes since they found a kill. I'm going to be skeptical. But we'll have to see how it ends up working out. Pobelter might be in some trouble here. Ssumday looking to collapse onto this guy. Flame will have potential, and Ssumday cannot Twisted Advance quick enough.
That was fractions of a second. If he gets hit by the Twisted Advance, the Roam Warp would not teleport him because that can be interrupted by silences and immobilizing effects. So that's a Q, that's a W. If Ssumday would have Q flashed that, it's actually a guaranteed interrupt because it's going to be faster than his Twisted Advance. So I feel like Ssumday misplayed that a little bit, and Pobelter gets out with his life.
Pobelter feeling good about being alive right about now. Mountain Drake also going to be feeling good and feeling alive in about 25 seconds, but the question is, how long will he do so as both of these teams likely going to be looking for him once he shows up. 19 minutes into this match, still a 1,000 gold advantage for Immortals. 2-0-0 on Dardoch in the jungle. Ghostblade completed now for that Kha'Zix. So much attack damage on him. If he can get one of these targets isolated, they're just going to be removed from the equation.
Yeah, and 3 seconds up until Mountain Drake. They do have the positioning, right?
Yeah.
They have Zyra in the river to be able to spawn some plants, and it's going to be tricky for Immortals to get in there. And they can try and rain some Varus arrows down onto them. So not only that, they popped the Malzahar passive, but Dardoch is in position for a flank if they're going to try and get it on the back line. I think Immortals wants to fight.
Dig, looking to make something happen, maybe. Flame soaking the damage on the front line, though. That's not the guy that's going to be bursted down very rapidly. Dardoch now backing himself away. Dignitas trying to collapse on this. Ping's coming out there on the blue side. They're pinging exactly where Dardoch is. They're saying, we've got him behind us. See if you can cut him off. See what we're going to make happen as Olleh gets caught and popped.
And Dignitas' last kill prior to that was 12 minutes and 4 seconds into game 1, actually. So it was over an hour of game time, but they did it.
They did it.
They have it, and now they can go for the Drake
back
and
on
make
the board.
The series around.
Dignitas have got to be feeling that momentum now. We're finally back into the kills. 20 minutes in. Mountain Drake is their target. That's going to tie the Drake count up 1-1. Mountain versus Cloud. Next one showing up.
Yep.
I'm trying to see exactly what the next one is, but I didn't know if the graphic updated in time.
Gonna watch this one more time. Passive gets popped by Olleh, walks straight into Xpecial, and just no teammates around. Dardoch was way back on the flank right there, so Immortals got a little bit ahead of themselves. The next one is Ocean.
Next one, Ocean for that extra regeneration. Oh, a little bit too late. Flame just gonna move down here, start farming these up. Got himself a small CS advantage. He's not Flame horizoning anyone, but 25 lead over his lane opponent in Ssumday. Ssumday with that Sunfire Cape already up and running, working towards Spirit Visage, the very standard top lane build, but with the Spirit Visage rush from Flame, not going for the Sunfire Cape now, instead looking towards Frozen Heart to slow down those attack speeds and give him that cooldown reduction.
Just going full tank, and he's up against 2 marksmen, so the Frozen Heart has a little bit more value since it also reduces the Corki damage, although I think Corki is mostly a spell-based AD carry.
Yeah.
Even so, you're going to be tankier with the Frozen Heart, generally in the Sunfire Cape, as long as you have some health to go with that armor and cooldown reduction for spammable spells. Still gets the Sunfire Cape later, but that's what Flames decided to do.
We know that penetration-based stats actually do more the closer you are to 0, so things like lethality are going to be hurting a lot more if you're cutting through those last few points of armor as opposed to taking a guy from 300 down to 250.
Exactly.
So as that armor continues to pile up onto Flame, he's just going to be able to shrug off those piercing arrows from Lod, not going to be having that same kind of experience that we saw Dignitas having last game, as Cody's son just poured shot after shot into them, taking over half their health bars. Dardoch Rocket's not going to find anything just yet, hanging around on that control ward, but quickly realizing he's not in a very good spot to be hanging around here. Arrows coming out, but won't be finding him. Olleh beside him, just to make sure that nothing too crazy is going to be happening here right now. Keane rotates top, he'll be defending this one, and Dignitas is fine playing the slow game again. They're waiting it out.
Yeah, and Immortals is very much kind of playing a little bit more 1-3-1 than they have in the previous game, and it dares Team Dignitas to make a proactive play. Last game, even though they didn't necessarily have the tools, they were very much playing not to lose, and that kind of guarantees that you don't win a lot of the time. So here, the one kill they have been able to pick up was Olleh kind of just walking straight into them, yet this Team Dignitas team has the Varus, who can initiate with the ultimate, and Maokai, who needs to be able to coordinate with the rest of his team to get some teleport flanks off while Immortals is 1-3-1-ing. So really, Immortals is going to accrue an advantage. The more they can 1-3-1 and chip down these turrets, while Team Dignitas isn't actually matching the 1-3-1 all that well because they're losing CS in it and not pulling the trigger on initiation.
Dardoch and Pobelter both remaining completely motionless in the enemy jungle just to make sure that Chaser's Tremor Sense is not going to be detecting them as they hang out in that brush and try to see if they can catch anybody passing by. They will not successfully do so as the mid lane continues to be pushed up into the face of Dignitas. It'll be immediately cleared away in response. Teleports are up for both of these top laners, so they are free to move around wherever they like, now hanging around in this bottom part of the map. Ssumday just sort of checking around for Flame. He's going to be finding him right now. Flame turns on the shield, and we've got ourselves a classic tank fight. Look at that damage, or lack thereof.
The latter.
Everybody's spell rotation, no damage onto either player.
Yeah.
Maokai versus Nautilus.
Yeah, well, Flame gone with the tankier, or the armor heavy, since he's losing the 500 health out of the Sunfire Cape, but really hard to touch that Nautilus. If Kha'Zix would have entered the fray, I think somebody would have had to worry a little bit about it, but because of the control words on the other side of the map, Team Dignitas were threatening the Baron.
I always forget that Varus actually does a sort of Super Saiyan yell as he charges his piercing arrow. It's a soundbite that you don't, at least I don't normally take notice of in a big fight or when anything else is happening. But when the camera just happens to pan over an otherwise totally silent Summoner's Rift and Varus starts charging an arrow, you just get that Goku scream and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to do 60% of his health, it better take a lot of effort to shoot that arrow.
It better sound good. It better sound like something you got to be afraid of. Speaking of being afraid, Pobelter looking to make sure Ssumday is afraid of exactly what Immortals can do in this 2v1, trying to get himself out. Vengeful Maelstrom going to be absorbing a lot of that damage. But Flame's got the CC, POB's got the damage. Ssumday being cut down very, very slowly, but surely enough, they will find the kill.
Yeah, and nothing doing on the rest of the map for Team Dignitas. I saw Dardoch jumping away from an attempted initiation. Laud's ultimate is now on cooldown, and that's the type of 1-3-1 slow bleed that you're seeing Immortals go towards. If Team Dignitas is going to be unable to punish both solo laners, spending 20 seconds killing a side laner, there's no reason for Immortals to deviate from this strategy.
Dardoch now going to be looking for the 1v1 against Keane, even exhausted. Look at the damage potential he has. It doesn't even do anything. Rockets flying out, as now Flame's coming up to make sure this is a 2v2. Dredgeline is sidestepped. Keane still trying to get away, 2 seconds onto the valve. Bullet time comes out just to make sure he does not get it.
Track this though, they're down the Misfortune ultimate, and with 2 dead, you would want them to maybe go for that Baron, but they're gonna have to pull back. Just another kill and a little bit of a gold extension for Immortals.
Immortals 5-1. 3,000 gold lead, stealing away the enemy blue buff, taking away the spam power of the Corki. Both of these mid laners so well enabled by the blue. We talked about the Ryze last game. Corki loves it too, just constant rocket barrage spam that is now not going to be that easy of an option as Immortals are setting up shop around Baron Nashor. And forget about setting up, it is just time to go. Trigger pull is there, and Baron Nashor is quickly melting away. Ping's coming out from Dignitas, but it's gonna be too damn little, too damn late, as Xpecial now caught out, locked down, and blown up. Immortals, they get their Baron and a kill.
And Team Dignitas none the wiser. Ssumday meandering down in the bottom lane, and no one even has a ward in the pit. So an easy Baron there for Immortals. Now they can just go right over to the Ocean Drake, and they're turning this into a stomp if they keep this up.
This is so much like last game, because last game I believe Dignitas was up a couple of thousand gold for a while. Immortals turns it around the mid 20-minute mark. Immortals grabs a Baron, and everything goes to hell in a handbasket for Dignitas. Now the story is repeating itself.
Yeah, except Team Dignitas didn't even have the early game lead this time, and it's only 4,000 gold, so they still have a chance to turn it around, but they have not displayed the ability to make the plays. And we're gonna watch this one more time, because this is the initial play where Dardoch does get most of the damage in before the exhaust can hit. Then Keane burns all summer spells, and the rest of the team can just kind of rotate up, because the map pressure is missing with the Maokai already being dead, so Keane really shouldn't have been there while he's trying to match the 1-3-1. Olleh or Cody's son probably could have ulted right there, and then without the Misfortune ultimate up, it didn't matter. Keane being dead, Ssumday would have been able to teleport in, but I guess Team Dignitas didn't think they'd have the ability to 4v5 at the Baron, and they give it up. All
right, Dignitas. History is repeating itself right now. Down 5,000 gold, 27 minutes into the game. Things are looking bleak, but the good thing is they can start fights now.
Yes.
They are not 5 squishy champions. They have got a front line, and they still might be able to punish if Immortals gets too reckless.
Yeah, and if Xpecial can get to the Leandri's Torment, they have a little bit of tank shredding, although Flame is hitting a point where he's actually not taking much damage from anyone. Randwood's Omen completed 261 armor on top of Frozen Heart. There's no percentage penetration on anyone on that team when he's stacking resist, so he can just ignore this as the Baron buff just pushes through. They're going for something.
Nautilus ulti finding its way onto Keane, but he gets himself back and safe in time. Dignitas now going to be eating more damage coming out as Flame reinitiates. Dredgeline back into the fight. Ssumday's going to be locked down. Olleh's killed first. Chasers into the back line. Flame still tanking so much damage. Finally going to be pulled down. Dardoch looking for the moves. Not going to be finding it just yet, but Pobelter has his mop and bucket to clean up.
And they get 3 as Pobelter continues to push inside. It was a pretty messy looking fight as Xpecial actually got a lot of damage over the wall, but advantage still Team Dignitas as they continue this push.
It was a little sloppy going, but they're still getting there, and at the end of the day, that is what matters. This inhibitor turret is quickly turned to a pile of rubble as Dardoch is going to be forced to jump away. Pobelter responding with a very big amount of damage coming right back into Keane's face, but Immortals have to disengage this one, go home, and prepare to suit up again.
Yeah, advantage gained, though, as they walk through this one more time. You can see Flame just being a massive tank walk straight into pretty much everything. Ssumday decides to return fire. And this is the fight where you think Team Dignitas, they should be trying to do something. Notice the nice Varus Q over the wall, and it wasn't actually Xpecial. I thought he was able to get over the wall. If Xpecial was over in the Raptor Pit and did a Zyra combo into that, maybe they could have cleaned up the back line. They do not, however. Dardoch forces the flash from Laud. Pobelter flashes into follow. That gives him the 3 for 2, and they can finish the push.
632 damage from the Ryze overload. 4,600 damage from Cody's son. 4,300 damage from Laud in that last fight. These 80 carries pulling their weight.
Yeah, that's...
Olleh did 392. He died pretty much instantly. I'm pretty sure that was all crabs too. There wasn't a lot that Malzahar was able to contribute in that last team fight. But the rest of the team took care of it for him, and now Immortals, they've got that open inhibitor middle. They're keeping a couple people hanging around there to just imply that pressure as Pobelter and Dardoch push up the bottom wave. Baron buff has dissipated now, so those minions are going to be regular old boring minions, not souped up purple ones.
So the pushes you'd think would diminish, but they have an open inhibitor. There they go.
They go for it. They make a very nice use of the Realm Warp, out-rotating their opponents, getting the drop on the inhibitor, and then they walk away without killing it.
Olleh got it. Now we got to fight.
Immortals now in some trouble, having to back away from this one. Got to be careful, then re-engage as they find Ssumday. What else are they going to get? Dardoch's making it 2. The flash for the kill, well played by Immortals. They back out, things look bad, and then as soon as the Stranglethorns clear away, boom, they're right back into the fight.
Yep, with level 16, Dardoch has now been able to get the evolution of his wings to fly right back out there, makes use of it. You saw the huge amount of shredding that Cody's son can do as well to prep. The armor executes coming out from Dardoch. He's got that Black Cleaver that we talked about earlier to combo with lethality. Really take people low, and this is just now Immortals hitting Dignitas in the face with a 10,000 gold lead. So even if Team Dignitas is able to get some initiations, they're just not able to front-to-front team fight right here. The Stranglethorns is totally cleared out from, as you said. Jump flash, jump out again from Dardoch, and a nice 2 for 0 plus advantage.
That bullet time was also a great counter tool against the Stranglethorns. You throw the Stranglethorns down, you think you control the area, all of a sudden Cody's son says, nope, this is mine. Puts the bullet time down, puts so much damage into the front line of Dignitas. Even though these guys are a lot tankier than the champions they were playing last game, they're not looking like it in the face of all this penetration coming in from Immortals.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Cody's son individually, he has 59 current flat armor penetration, plus then the Black Cleaver, which can stack up to 30% of their target's armor. And not everyone is doing physical damage to benefit from that, but Dardoch actually is, so it's a pretty wicked combo to have the bullet time coming in on top of Fed Kha'Zix, who's also got that lethality stack.
And going back to what we were talking about before we ever got into this series, 2-4 Immortals, 1-5 Dignitas. Both teams with lackluster starts that they would like to start improving on here in week number 4, like to start the rebound right here, right now, and Immortals is looking like the team that has the potential to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if they can close this 9,000 gold lead out, it will be a 2-0 over Team Dignitas, and a lot of it has been patience. They have not tilted after some bad starts, and I feel like their team compositions have been very cohesive in this series as well. Then you look across the battlefield, the Team Dignitas, and it doesn't look like they've made many strides. They talked about the team morale being strong, but their communication still seems incredibly lackluster. Ssumday, who we've been saying has been the highlight player for them, is not actually having a good series. 1 kill on Jace, then nothing in here. An inability to get involved in the right team fights on Maokai as Immortals just continue to extend their lead with a solo Drake by Dardoch.
Yeah, Dardoch has no trouble whatsoever taking this down by himself. That is the last Elemental Drake going to be popping up this game. It equalizes the mountain count between the two teams. Takes Immortals up to a 3-1 Drake lead overall. No Infernals this time around, so no extra damage on the Kha'Zix and the Ryze and the Misfortune, which you're very thankful for if you're Dig. But now they're having to get away. Realm Warp coming in. Pobelter right into the fight. Bullet time on 3. Adios, Dignitas. Immortals have found the game.
Oh man, that was pretty. Everyone knocked up by Flame as he finds the initiation, and the bullet time eviscerates Dignitas' health bars right there. That's it.
That's the game. Bullet Time just won the entire match with that beautiful setup. Immortals made it happen. Now they're on to the Nexus turrets. It's all over but the crying. And Immortals have found their 2-0 victory over Team Dignitas.
And this one was substantially faster than the last game. So Team Dignitas tried to leave their base. It did not work out well. And now Immortals should be pretty content with a
Yeah, you can say it's a low-kill game, so I guess it's not messy in the traditional sense of a crazy high-kill fiesta. Yeah. But after the game that seemed a little bit out there, game number 2 was just a pronounced win.
Yeah, it really was. They completely walked through Dignitas right there, never really with a large deficit. Dardoch had first blood. Their bottom lane got pushed in a little bit early, but that's going to happen when you get target ban in the marksman role and you give up Varus. So they walked into a matchup that they needed to win as a 2-4 team. Now they're at 3-4, and things are looking a little bit up.
3-4 means you are now 1 win away from having an even record. Yep. You don't feel like a losing team. You feel like a team that has the potential to go either way. Meanwhile, Dignitas, I said they were tied for the last place in the league. Now they are last place in the league because they are 1-6 and Envy is 1-5.
Yeah, that's grim for Team Dignitas, especially the way in which they are losing games. They are not trying a bunch of plays and flailing around. They really did not make any good plays as a team in that series. They had a few early game strategies that worked out, but beyond that, the overall cohesion and the teamwork and the strategy weren't there, and that is more concerning than anything else.
Especially for a team that, like we mentioned, is going for this sort of trust the process type of a plan. We're going to get better as things go along. Give us time to work the kinks out. It's going to be a well-oiled machine. And right now, we're looking at that machine like, I don't even know if this thing runs.
That's why you need to trust the process. It takes a lot of time.
A lot of trust
for the process.
We're talking about a lot of faith in this process.
You get enough first-round draft picks, just pile that in, and then 1 year, when you have 7 centers, you can win. But that just way off the deep end of the Philadelphia 76ers. But the team itself for Immortals, or for Team Dignitas, definitely need a kickstart of some kind. And it's not like you can bring in Ssumday again. They just, the patches could obviously change things. Different day could definitely change things, but they need to just find a win condition that works, because it seems like they're just hoping they win lanes in most of these games and they naturally win, but their actual closing of the game just doesn't seem to be there in any way, shape, or form.
And in both of these matches, it was in the mid-game. Like I brought up earlier, or the 20-something minute Baron losing to Immortals in both sides was just the end for them. That was where they completely lost control. A game that was favored for their opponents then just became this complete washout for their opponents. They got to shape up that mid-game.
Yeah, they really do, and it's going to be a tough road for them. Obviously, they started off so strong. It's been all downhill from there, so best of luck as they try and proceed, but Immortals definitely clean things up towards the end of that series.
For a first-hand account on exactly how that series was, let's send it down to Riv and Immortals